When Caroline Leavitt accepted the invitation to appear on The Daily Show, she knew the odds were stacked against her. She thought, this is my shot to set the record straight. No teleprompters, no filters, just her, one-on-one with Jon Stewart, a comedy titan known for ripping into conservatives with surgical precision. But Caroline didn't flinch. She walked in calm, focused, and ready for anything. Then Stewart came out swinging. He mocked her ties to Trump, called her a Gen Z puppet, and twisted the recent signal leak into a nationwide punchline. The crowd laughed. The cameras zoomed in. For a moment, it felt like classic Jon. Sharp, smug, unstoppable. But what happened next? No one saw it coming. Instead of freezing, Caroline leaned in, stared him down, and fired back with a brutal, unexpected counter that hit harder than anything Stewart had prepped. The crowd went silent. Stewart was caught off guard, visibly rattled. What started as a late-night roast turned into a jaw-dropping moment of live TV power shift. This wasn't just a comeback, it was a political mic drop. Before we dive into the full story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Trust me, you do not want to miss how this all played out. The studio lights of The Daily Show burned a little hotter that night. Jon Stewart, the titan of late-night satire and a voice many on the left saw as gospel, leaned into the camera with a familiar grin. But this time, his target wasn't a seasoned senator or Wall Street mogul. It was Caroline Leavitt. Ah, yes, Stewart mused, tapping his desk like a courtroom judge. Caroline Leavitt, America's favorite Gen Z spokesperson, rising star of the MAGA movement, and now apparently an expert on encrypted messaging apps. The crowd laughed. He hadn't even started yet. He rolled the clip of a recent Signal app controversy, a private group chat allegedly tied to a Trump policy leak. Caroline's name had been floated around in vague headlines, though no concrete connection had been proven. Still, the story had enough smoke for Stewart to fan it into fire. Now, I'm not saying Caroline herself leaked sensitive info, he said with mock seriousness, but if you accidentally add a national security reporter to your private chat, maybe you should be managing a high school debate team, not the White House press briefings. Laughter, applause. But Stewart wasn't done. She says she's standing for freedom of speech, family values, and traditional America. I say she's standing in front of a teleprompter, waiting for Trump to text her talking points. The jabs turned personal fast. Faith is important, sure, he said, folding his hands in a mock prayer. But if your entire political strategy is quoting Corinthians after you post a meme of Biden with devil horns, maybe you're not a prophet. Maybe you're just an influencer in a blazer, the audience roared. By the time the monologue ended, Caroline Leavitt had been mocked for her age, her religion, her loyalty, her intelligence, and her every word. Social media exploded. Clips flooded X, TikTok, YouTube. Progressive influencers called it a masterclass in takedown comedy. Liberal outlets ran headlines like, Stewart dismantles Gen Z mouthpiece. But something else began stirring online, quieter but powerful. On Facebook, older Americans weren't laughing. In veterans groups and conservative circles, Stewart's attack didn't feel like comedy. It felt cruel. She reminds me of my granddaughter, one Vietnam vet wrote under a Fox News post, and watching him tear her apart like that, it made me sick. Say what you want about politics, another user commented, but there's no honor in mocking someone's faith on national television. She believes in something. That used to mean something in this country. Caroline had always sparked controversy, but now she was sparking something else. A deep emotional response, not anger, protectiveness. Older Americans didn't just see a political figure being ridiculed. They saw a young woman being thrown to the wolves by a man who'd once claimed to speak truth to power. And so, when Stewart ended his monologue with a smirking invitation, Caroline, you said you're not afraid. Come on the show, prove it. The reaction wasn't what he expected. Caroline didn't retreat. She responded with 3 words. Name the time. 3 nights later in the dressing room just off the soundstage, Caroline Leavitt sat in front of a mirror, alone. The world outside was bracing for a showdown, and in that quiet space she prayed. This wasn't just a PR move. This wasn't about owning Stewart or going viral. This was about something deeper, something ancestral. In her mind, she could see her grandfather, his wrinkled hand on her shoulder when she was 13, telling her to never let a bully steal your voice. She could hear her mother's voice reciting psalms when times were hard, telling her, faith isn't just belief, it's the courage to speak when your voice shakes. And tonight, her voice might shake. The show producers were buzzing down the hall. Her team had urged her not to come. It's a setup, Karoline. He'll humiliate you. But she didn't care. She had made peace with what was coming. She was walking into the lion's den, not for herself, but for the people watching at home. People who still believed in things like dignity, reverence, and standing your ground, even when the crowd jeers. In small towns across America, older viewers tuned in. Retired factory workers, farmers, Sunday school teachers. Some clasped their hands, some shouted at their TVs. She's got guts, one man whispered. He better show her some respect. The stage lights flared. Jon Stewart emerged to thunderous applause. He cracked a few jokes, light, playful, the kind that warmed up a crowd like a boxer testing his jab. Then the tone shifted. Tonight, he said, we're joined by someone who says she's not afraid of this show, or of me. Applause. She's the youngest press secretary in American history. She works for Trump, and she's trending for all the wrong reasons. More laughter. Please welcome Karoline Leavitt. The doors opened. She stepped out in a tailored navy suit, her shoulders squared, her walk unhurried. No entourage, no flash. She shook Stewart's hand. He gestured to the chair. So, Stewart said as the audience chuckled, how's your Signal app these days? Laughter. Again. Karoline smiled faintly. Good evening, Jon. He leaned forward, wasting no time. Let's get this out of the way. The Signal leak, the chat, the Goldberg debacle. You want to clear that up? Or just pray it away? The audience howled. Karoline didn't flinch. She folded her hands calmly and said, you know, Jon, I was taught to pray before battles, not to escape them. The audience paused. Some laughed nervously, others went quiet. And I also believe, she continued, that our country should be having conversations, not roasting people who disagree. He blinked. For a second, the smirk faded. Then he launched again. You're 27. You're working for Trump. You think America should trust you? Karoline nodded. I think America should hear everyone, even the ones you don't agree with. Isn't that what free speech is about? Stewart raised an eyebrow. And yet you support someone who, let's say, isn't a champion of polite discourse. Karoline chuckled. I don't think Jesus flipped tables in the temple to be polite. A wave of surprised gasps swept the room, then silence. Older viewers across America sat up straighter. She was holding her own, not with outrage, not with snark, with something else. Resolve, faith, unshakable calm. For the first time that night, the audience didn't laugh. They listened. Stewart smirked, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Karoline had dodged his opening assault with a grace he didn't expect. And worse, she hadn't lost the room. You've got good lines, he said, straightening in his seat. But let's be real. Signal wasn't just a mishap. You're dodging responsibility. Karoline tilted her head. Responsibility? She leaned slightly forward, and for the first time, the smile left her lips. You want to talk about responsibility, Jon, she said. Then let's start with you. A producer behind the camera shifted uncomfortably. The audience murmured. Let's talk about what you said on your show back in 2020. Karoline continued, turning her head slightly. Play it. Behind them, a monitor lit up. Karoline's team had prepared for this. On screen, an old clip played, Jon Stewart, speaking during a COVID segment, calling social media regulation a necessary guardrail and praising certain platforms for taking down dangerous misinformation. The soundbite ended. The studio fell silent. Karoline looked back at Stewart. That was you. Celebrating censorship, cheering the takedown of voices that didn't fit a certain narrative. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't need to. And now here you are, she said, mocking me for standing up for free speech, for allowing debate, disagreement, even chaos, because that's what freedom looks like. A low murmur rippled through the audience. And what's worse, she added, her voice tightening, you hide behind jokes, Jon. You hide behind this desk, this studio, pretending to be the noble truth teller. But you're not neutral. You never were. The air shifted. Something was changing. Karoline gestured toward the crowd. Do you know how many Americans out there still trust you? Still believe you stand for the little guy? She let the silence stretch. Do they know your show's sponsored by companies tied to political PACs that bankroll one side of the aisle? There was a brief gasp from the left side of the studio. You can mock me all night, Karoline said, but let's not pretend you're an outsider anymore. You're a brand, a business, a gatekeeper for a system that doesn't like being questioned. Jon Stewart blinked. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out right away. For the first time, he hesitated, and in that hesitation, the audience leaned forward. Not in laughter, in curiosity. Karoline's voice stayed steady. You said I pray because I'm scared, that I use faith as a crutch. She looked Stewart directly in the eyes now. But I want to make something very clear, Jon. You can mock me, that's fine. But don't mock what got me here. She glanced briefly toward the audience, then back at him. Faith is why I'm standing. Faith is what kept my grandfather alive in war, what carried my parents through foreclosure, what gets millions of Americans through loss, through sickness, through betrayal. Faith isn't weakness, it's survival. Someone in the back of the audience clapped, then another, and then the clapping stopped. Not because people disagreed, because something sacred had entered the room. I don't hide behind jokes, she said. I stand behind truth, and I'm here because millions of people feel like they've been silenced, mocked, pushed aside, not just by politicians, but by people like you. Stewart shifted in his chair. And if you think I'm reckless or inexperienced for defending them, then fine. I'd rather be called reckless than cowardly. The audience murmured again. Stewart tried to pivot. All right, he said. You're clearly prepared. But let's go back to Signal. No, Karoline said calmly, interrupting him. Let's go forward. Another monitor lit up. This time her team pulled campaign donation data. It showed contributions to media companies tied to partisan PACs. PACs that had directly opposed conservative speech in Congress. Are you asking me if I'm loyal to my beliefs? Karoline asked. Because I am. But the question is, are you? Stewart stared at the screen. The audience murmured louder now. Karoline turned back to them. This isn't just about me, or Trump, or Signal. It's about truth. And who gets to tell it? Silence. Raw. Real. The laughter was gone. The smirks faded. The crowd had shifted. Not toward rage, but toward reflection. A hashtag quietly began trending online. Karoline counterpunch. What was supposed to be a public takedown had just turned into a national moment. In the hours following Karoline Leavitt's unforgettable showdown with Jon Stewart, social media erupted into an emotional storm. Twitter lit up like never before. A simple tweet from President Donald Trump surged across millions of screens. Karoline Leavitt has shown us all that courage and conviction know no age. Incredible. Ershan, stand with Karoline. It quickly went viral, gaining retweets and comments from everyday Americans and influential public figures alike. Former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi didn't hesitate to lend her voice, posting a powerful tribute. Today, we witnessed bravery in action. Karoline Leavitt stood firm against a media giant, reminding us why truth matters. Stand proud, Karoline. Truth matters. Bondi's post echoed across the internet, generating a wave of admiration and solidarity. Veterans groups and faith-based organizations immediately rallied to Leavitt's defense. Videos emerged online, showing veterans saluting her courage, pastors invoking prayers for strength, and communities gathering in spontaneous vigils to honor her brave stand against perceived injustice. In homes across America, older generations who had often felt sidelined by modern media watched in admiration and relief. It's about time someone young stood up for what we believe in, remarked a Vietnam War veteran from Kentucky in a viral video clip, tears brimming in his eyes. Karoline is proof that the next generation is ready to fight for truth. The reaction wasn't just digital, it was tangible. Rally after rally sprang up in towns and cities, with banners waving, proclaiming Karoline Leavitt, defender of truth. Young conservatives, Gen Z activists, college students who often felt marginalized by mainstream narratives, they found their champion. Karoline had transcended mere spokesperson status. She had become a cultural symbol, a rallying cry for those who believed their voices were being drowned out by the mainstream. Meanwhile, Jon Stewart, who had confidently walked onto his own stage expecting applause, now faced an unfamiliar silence. His next show, usually filled with laughter and satire, opened differently. He stood under the bright lights, visibly subdued, humility etched on his face. With uncharacteristic solemnity, he admitted, "Sometimes, folks, even I can be taught a lesson. Today I learned not to underestimate someone simply because of their age or political alignment." He paused, took a deep breath, and humorously added, "Turns out I was schooled by someone half my age and twice my wit. Kudos, Karoline." Stewart's candid moment sparked another wave of dialogue. While some criticized him for underestimating Leavitt, others praised him for his humility in defeat. Yet the conversation always circled back to Karoline, a testament to the lasting impact of her courage. The video clip of Karoline's powerful comeback continued to trend, not just for days but weeks, shared millions of times. It inspired memes, discussions, podcasts, and editorial pieces. Karoline's poise, articulate defensive values, and unapologetic conviction resonated deeply, transforming her from a political figure into an enduring symbol of resistance and youthful courage. This was not simply about one debate or one viral clip. It was a cultural moment. It reminded viewers across generations that courage isn't bound by age, and truth isn't confined to experience. As the days turned into weeks, Karoline Leavitt's confrontation with Jon Stewart became more than a memory. It became a turning point. Schools and universities began to invite her to speak, eager to hear firsthand the perspective that had shaken the media establishment. At one college event, a young woman nervously approached Karoline after her speech, her voice trembling with emotion. "I never believed I could stand up like you did," she whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "But watching you gave me hope. Maybe I can." Karoline smiled softly, clasped the young woman's hand warmly, and said, "You already have." This interaction wasn't isolated. Countless messages poured in from viewers, young and old alike, who felt inspired to speak up, stand firm, and hold fast to their beliefs. Each testimony strengthened Karoline's resolve, reminding her why she had chosen this path. In a closing message that resonated deeply with millions, Karoline shared these heartfelt words. "No one is too young to stand for the truth, and no one is too old to believe in it. Every voice matters. Every act of courage sparks another. We must never underestimate the power of standing firm in our beliefs, no matter how loud the opposition, no matter how daunting the fight." Her message echoed far beyond screens and auditoriums, igniting hope and determination in hearts across America. And as the lights dimmed after her latest speech, as applause thundered around her, Karoline realized this journey was never about defeating Jon Stewart or gaining media acclaim. It was always about something far greater, lighting the flame of courage in those who felt voiceless, affirming the value of truth in a world quick to dismiss it, and proving that bravery was never a matter of age, but of conviction. That night, as Karoline returned home, her phone vibrated softly with a message from her father. "Proud of you, Karoline. Keep climbing that ladder. There's always something worth reaching for." She closed her eyes, a soft smile on her lips, knowing she had made her father proud, and hoping somewhere above her brother Michael was watching, knowing his words had never been forgotten. And for everyone who had watched her journey, who had felt outraged, inspired, validated, Karoline's legacy was clear. Truth always finds a voice, courage always finds a champion, and hope, even when bruised, always rises. If Karoline's story resonated with you, if it sparked something deep within, don't just carry it in silence. Share this story, ignite hope, stand for truth. Because courage isn't just about facing adversity, it's about inspiring others to stand with you. Join our community, subscribe for more stories that remind us of who we are, what we stand for, and the power we all have to make a difference. Together, our voices can never be silenced.